Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 3 of There's a First Time for Everything. With your host, yours truly, Bill Blank, producer Jared Dog, 30 minutes away. The beauty of technology. Here we are. And for those of you that don't know, and this is your first time listening, The First Time for Everything is a podcast where I am going to bring my friends on from all over the country, different comics, a lot of just regular Joes. But we're going to bring people on and they're going to tell their first time stories about any and everything. It's not just, it's not just relegated to any particular thing. It could be losing your virginity, your first date, your first kiss, your first fight, first time doing virtually anything, as long as it's interesting, hopefully embarrassing, hopefully we're all entertained in one way or another. It could even be very profound. We never know where we're going to get, but I do know that I am going to bring on people that I love and I respect and are highly intelligent, and no matter what happens, we're going to have a good time, and we're going to have provocative conversations, hopefully, at some point. And today's guest, the first time I met today's guest, I was opening for him here in Des Moines. I was emceeing. We have a mutual friend. Our buddy John Bush is a close friend of both of ours. So we had that little bit of an intro. We hit it off right away. We're both kind of the same when it comes to how we look at comedy and how we look at the way comics should be behaving, all kinds of different things. But yet and still, this is a dude that I adore, that every single show I can actually sit in the back and watch because he's always doing something different. He's always taking chances. It's just a joy to be around, and we always have a good time together. So everybody, please welcome my good friend, Ian Bagg.
Hello, everybody.
There he is.
Oh, my goodness. You should have just done this show once. And it just the first time, and then just finished it.
It's the thing when you came on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I thought of is what I forgot, because every time I see you, I'm reminded you are fucking cute. Like
I shouldn't have gave you that extra half an hour to smoke pod.
I haven't gotten any of the British Columbia stuff yet. But you do. That's what it is with you. Like, you just have this fucking face where I want to like kiss you and squeeze you and shit.
I'm like a puppy. You just want to put me in your mouth.
Yeah, but I'm not even. Yeah, like, and not even feel at all homosexual about it at all. Just like, God damn it, he's just so fucking cute.
That's awesome. That makes me happy. Thanks for having me on your podcast, Bill. This is the first time I've actually ever been on this side of StreamYard. I use StreamYard for my podcast, but this is the first time I've ever been on the other side as a guest.
Oh, really?
And when I first signed in, I was looking for buttons. I was just like, hey, there's not enough buttons. There's not enough buttons.
So are you is the lack of control bothering you?
No, it's actually
a little
great.
bit. Yeah,
I love it. I just like, well, whatever happens. It's their fault.
How have you been? How have you been keeping yourself occupied? Have you been on stage at all?
I haven't been on stage, I would say, a surprisingly amount of times I've been on stage. I've done.
Oh, really?
I went to Alaska a couple weeks ago. Did 5 shows up there, and they tested me when I got off the plane, and then I walked out of the airport, and I was like, "Oh, the disease is on this side. It's not on that side."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because they're walking around with masks and stuff, and then when I get back on the plane and get home, I read about how that spike there was gone, but I got away with it. I didn't get anything. Knock on wood. So
yeah, because I assumed you're still in LA, right? Yeah. So I assumed that, like, because LA is like fucking nothing.
Well, there's some underground shit happening here. There's some.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty cool. There's one in Venice. This kind of mansion is got it's a kind of in front. You're on one side of the pool, and then there's about 50 people on the other side. And there's one in Venice, and then there's this at the Magic Castle. There's one in a parking lot, and then I have one at a restaurant in outside, just on their balcony. So.
Oh, you stand on the balcony.
Yeah, everybody. We're all on the balcony.
Oh, everybody's on the balcony.
Yeah. So.
That just gave me an idea. That would be a fucking perfect like outdoor show.
Right.
Just be on the balcony of an apartment where the balcony's just, you're like on the second floor of an apartment and you're on the balcony in like a courtyard or something.
Yeah, Avita.
That'd be fucking perfect. Avita.
It's I think outdoors is the word we're probably going to have to, because I read that you did the Funny Bone this weekend, right?
Omaha, yeah.
Oh, it's Omaha. So is there anything going on in Iowa or no?
Des Moines is supposed to be opening in November. I think the first week of November. I'm supposed to be there the second week with Michael Blackson. But it's still like kind of.
It's not looking good?
No, it's not that it's not looking good. It's just, it's still not quite. I don't feel secure with it yet.
Right. It's not there. It's not there
yet.
Yeah.
I mean, the city kind of isn't.
Yeah. Everybody's got to feel comfortable. I did this one in Escondido, California last weekend, and the club, it's their entrance. They have this huge entrance. This is almost the size, the same as the room. So everybody was outside. It was just like I think it was 20 tables outside. It was great. So.
That's pretty. I mean, well, and that's what I know. Like when I finally did start doing a few shows, it was small towns, like small town bars in Iowa, where I feel completely safe there. Like they should be scared of me, is what I feel like.
Would it be inside?
Yeah, they were inside. Like they're letting in Iowa, you can socially like the restaurants can be open at like half capacity.
Oh, really? We're nowhere near that in California.
Yeah, and see, like that's what it is. Like that's Omaha. Omaha was basically operating at half capacity. So every show was like a really good Thursday.
Yeah,
or something.
I have been noticing. I've been like, you just keep track of things, and there's guys out there in Canada. Like it's the same thing, and you can go half capacity in Canada. And they've been kind of bragging about having sellouts, and I was just like, dude, I'm a very, very big success. If we're
isn't that your favorite? Isn't it your favorite when somebody says 3 sold out shows this week, but forget to mention that they were opening for someone famous?
Yeah. Do you remember? The last time I was in Iowa, do you remember? No, you weren't there. I went up against Garth Brooks.
Oh my God! And he did all these extra shows here.
He did like 17 shows. 17 shows in like 5 days, and I was
the whole fucking city.
Yeah, and I was 4 days. I was 4 days of that 5 days. I'm like, well, thanks, Garth.
So what was your best show? What was the capacity of the best show? How many?
I think maybe 110 or something like that. It was just ridiculous. It was just like, well, thanks. And then I was just like, how did you people not get tickets to Garth Brooks? You're the one. I get the only headbangers in town. So.
Right. Well, and they see, that's the thing is like it depends on what state you're in. It depends on the capacity of the club as a whole. So like Omaha, I think capacity in Omaha, I think is like 400 or a little more than that.
It's a pretty big room, right?
Yeah. So they can have 200 people at half capacity. And that's not a shitty audience at all. Number one. And
200 was like a decade ago. Like that was a sellout a decade ago. So
yeah. And so that's a good number, and you can properly distance in that situation.
Yeah.
Well, and they can cut their staff to where they'll make money. Like maybe they cut the food runners, and so it's only servers and they're running their own food.
Right.
And they just do different stuff like that, and they can make it work. Well, I think our club in Des Moines, you can only have, I think, 130. So now you've got a whole nother situation because that's 70 less people than like Omaha can have, but it costs the same amount of money to have a fucking walk-in cooler in your restaurant, no matter what. You know what I mean? So like, that's what you're playing with, and then you have to dance between. Like she could go local right at first, and go a little bit soft, so there's no hotel, there's none of that shit. But if you go local, you've got people like me and a couple other comics who have been getting all these people in for free for fucking 20 years. And then all of a sudden you see how much they really support you, because now they won't buy tickets or something.
Right. It's funny. I had some people ask me for tickets, and I was like, sorry, this isn't the time for freebies. And they didn't show up. I was like, I was like,
yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, we're all trying to survive here. What the hell, man? Come on.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, so, 130 people, you've got to sell every ticket. You can't really have an off show.
Yeah.
Whereas if your capacity is 200 and you got the same kind of thing, then you might be able to pull off a less than perfect night. But you're not going to be. You can't paper 130.
No, if anything, this might create a thing where we get rid of papered.
Mm-hmm.
So which would be good. But I'm also that there were some businesses that needed to go. You're just. You're just like, I'm sure some of these places just got money and then just go, we're not going to make it, and cut it and just put it in their pocket and left. So, a
lot of those places, like where there's like some fucking cunty ass businessman who buys failing businesses on purpose so he can claim losses and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's good to see those fold up early.
It's good to see those fold, or just the people that just didn't care about their business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's time for you to skedaddle, my friend. There was a club in New York, and I was just like, that should have been closed before the pandemic.
What, Dangerfields?
Yeah, I'm just like, what? And then there were some comics where like, oh, it was so sad to go. I'm like, are you serious? You only took Dangerfields if you couldn't get anything else. That's the only time you took.
Yeah. That's why you're sad.
Yeah, you couldn't work anywhere else. That's why you were upset, my friend.
What about there was another. I spent a couple weeks in New York, like way back at the very beginning of my career, like 2004, and. Mm-hmm. I went to every club. I went to Dangerfields. I went to I think they had a Laugh Factory even at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? The Cellar was the only place I didn't go.
That's funny.
If I remember right. Isn't that crazy? That should have been the fucking one I went to.
Yeah. That's why I'm watching right now the Comedy Store show on Showtime. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
You should watch it.
I'm gonna check that out.
It's the history of the Comedy Store, and I just remember, I rarely play there. I passed, but it was never a place I wanted to play. It was weird.
Really?
Yeah, I was just like, meh. I'm a judgmental little prick at times, but it was just a place I was like, meh. And now it's booming again. Well, not really, not now, but it was booming again. And it's just funny how some of these places survive and some of them don't. Like they had nobody in the Comedy Store for probably a decade. So they made no money for a decade and they were able to survive. It's crazy.
How do you think that happened?
I have no idea. If the family had enough money that they owned it, and it was just basically a house. It was just a party house. But
well, I know, as the last I knew, Paulie was fighting with his siblings over it. Is that still happening? Do you know?
I don't know if they're fighting. I think it's making money now, but it is a really, really. a very expensive piece of land, and they could sell it and make a lot of money.
So
So
that's what they're fighting about. The
yeah.
siblings probably want to sell it, and he wants to keep it
Mhm.
open.
Yeah, I think there's two of the two of the boys want to keep it open, and a couple of the other ones want to like crush it. So
Which also means that they're gonna try to get the other two boys. If they're not gonna crush it, they gotta buy them out or something.
something, yeah, something. No, it's a lot of money. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, that's sad that you guys have to fight over all that money. That's sad.
Yeah, yeah.
That's sad that you might not have to work. Oh,
That's my biggest fear is, because my dad just retired a while, like a couple years ago. All his he's got a house that's paid off, and he's got a lake house that's paid off, and all this stuff. And so whenever all this shit goes down, it's going to be me and my sisters that are in charge of it all. And I'm so like, I couldn't imagine that we would fight over it at all, the three of us. Like,
I have friends. I have friends that have property, like you're just how the hell do you have this many properties, right? And their grandfather's old and got probably got Alzheimer's and stuff, and the family's cutting it up already, which is always weird to me. But a couple of the siblings are oh, that's not enough for us, already getting like that, and I'm just like, wow, that's incredible. Wouldn't you rather have your family member than an extra $200,000, especially when you're getting a couple million, So it's
and
weird.
how much, yeah, how much debt do you have, and how many horrible decisions have you made that's that important?
Well, that's what it is, right? Yeah,
It's got to be, right?
you haven't made it on your own 2 feet, so you have to hope for one of your family members to die. That's sad. Ooh, that's sad.
Or
My mom and
or
dad
they
have always
even
my mom and dad have always been, we got nothing. So if we're dead, you're gonna actually end up owing. So nah.
that, yeah, that's the same conversation I've had. My dad would say things like, well, you know, we got to make sure that this is left over and that's left over. And I'm always like, Dad, like, your job was to make us not need any of this from you.
Yes, that's a great thing. Here's what you said right there. Your job was not to make it. Yes, so good.
And so I would rather live in a box
Mm-hmm.
than somehow exploit my dad's fucking property that he left or whatever. I wouldn't feel good about that.
No, not at all. You should, you should, you should. If they leave you something, you should cherish it, but you shouldn't expect anything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, like when my grandma died, they got my dad was like a power of attorney or whatever, right?
mm-hmm.
Which that was for a reason because she knew my dad would divvy everything up evenly and not need any of it and you
Right.
name it. And after it all got divvied up or whatever, he calls me and my sister, my two sisters, tells us to come over and gives us each like $1,000. And he's like, well, that's from grandma.
That's
And
nice.
I'm like, what? He's like, well, she would have wanted me to give it to you guys.
That's not how my mom went. My grandma gave us stamps. We had to figure out how to sell them. I'm like, oh God, stamps. Oh, we're gonna sell stamps. So
Did you?
yeah, we had to sell them. We had to put them in an auction or something like that. I can't remember. I spent that. Like I think it was about $1,000 as well. So, but every grandkid got a certain amount of stamps. So it was probably about $20,000 worth of stamps.
So he just said, I wish your dad left you a lamp. With a question mark. I don't get it.
Because you're in the dark. I didn't. Are people actually watching this?
There's Bill, are you in no, I'm not. I'm in a finished basement. The problem is the only light that I have in my office, so to speak, is right above my head, so the lighting looks like shit. If it were daytime, there's a window in front of me and I'd have everything open and it would look great. But instead, what I have to do is put my phone with the flashlight on top of my computer, and that's my lighting.
Don't let them bug you, Bill.
Yeah, I will not.
If I had
I
been
will
on
not.
time, it would have been bright outside.
That's right. Yeah, where you are.
Yeah.
But so anyway, yeah, your parents are still around, right?
Knock on wood. Yeah, my parents are they're still around, and they're my mom's bossy as ever, and my dad's goofy as ever. And yeah, they live up in Canada in the middle of nowhere still. My sister lives up there. It's funny. My sister's a teacher, and she took this job that moved her back to my parents' town. So she's actually living with my parents, and she's the union rep for teachers in all that area. And I just bug her. I go, "What's it like having to go into those union meetings and you live with your mom and
Well, wouldn't that make her a fucking beacon of?
Yeah, it makes your case. Well, I have to live with my parents. That's how bad the wages
That's
are.
how. Yeah, exactly. You motherfuckers! I have to buy my own supplies. If I didn't have to buy my own supplies, I'd have my own place.
My parents buy the supplies for me because I live at home still.
Every school year, I get new clothes and pencils and pens.
I tease her, Mom and Dad, drop you off at the meeting.
See, that's the thing. Like we were talking about a second ago, what exactly does standing on your own 2 feet mean?
Right.
Because it's like, like for example, like I said to my dad, like it was your job to make us not need any of this from you. Well, if in order for me to not literally need anything from him, that means that at the very least I can afford to live in a fucking 1-bedroom apartment or something by myself.
Right. Yeah.
And I will do that before I will fight with my siblings over amounts of money that are left to the three of us.
I remember it's been a long time since I've had to borrow money from my parents, but I remember, my parents lending me some money a couple times during my stand-up. But I also remember taking jobs I didn't want to do. I worked in a beer store during my early years. I worked. When I was in LA, I worked as a hockey coach, and I worked as I was a cater waiter for a while when I first moved out here. I just you hit bottom and stuff like that. You have to do, and you survive. I wish I'd learned that as a stand-up you don't need to rush to these other cities, because I went to New York and then I went to LA. I went to Vancouver. I had to move to Vancouver, New York, LA. Those were my moves as a stand-up. And if I had just known that, just take over Vancouver, become the king of Vancouver, and that'll be the same as living in, New York or LA, because it's weird. Chad Daniels has done just fine. You've done just fine living in the towns that you guys live in. But I say that, and as I'm saying that, I'm like, I had to move to Vancouver to start, right? So maybe that wasn't my town that I was meant to live in, because I really enjoy living in LA. Long Beach is where I live. I just really enjoy it. So, but it would have been great to be able to live someplace that financially it didn't cost me. Like I always
that's the thing. It's not about being a big fish in a small pond,
right?
Because when you're a big fish in a small pond, everyone wants to bring you down to earth.
Right.
They don't want to take you seriously. Like it's like being a local news person.
Right.
They're going, oh, who the fuck are you? Yeah, if you're worth a shit, you'd be somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of how they treat you. But what it is I can have a fucking 4-bedroom, 2,000 square foot house for $1,200 a month, and I own it.
Right. Oh, you bragger.
Where I'd be in LA for $1,200. What would I get out of that? A room in somebody else's house, maybe?
I was going to say right here, if you look at my background, there's $1,200 right there. There's my towel hanging right up there. That's
Well, and that's the thing. And I know there's a lot of really successful comics and stuff really looking to leave LA right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things. People talk about taxes and stuff, and when things are going, I have no problem paying all the taxes that we pay out here. It's when you pay to play, and I pay to have the ocean outside my door. I pay for being in a town called Los Angeles. I pay for that kind of stuff, and I have no problem. But when we're suddenly not playing, that's when it looks big. And I honestly, Bill, I don't know if it was 10 years ago in my career, I don't know where I'd be. Like I was lucky that I had 8 months worth of savings that I could live off of. I've the fact that I had that much savings blows my mind. Like I've only probably got about another 6 months left, So thank God. So thank God money started coming in. Like this month, putting money into my bank and watching the bank account go up has been a different thing for the first
time. Instead of going down, yeah.
So it's just been incredible. But I don't. These guys shouldn't stay in LA for pride,
Right. Well, and especially the more successful people, monetarily successful people, they've built their audience. They don't need to live in LA.
No, they can.
The only reason to really live in LA is because you can go to these different clubs every night. But
but do they go to these clubs anymore? A lot of people, when they get to a certain amount of success, do they go to the clubs? Like when I was before March, I go out every week, and I come home, and I do one set. I'd go out and do one set. Barstow. I go. So how many clubs do I need? If I had grown my in Hermosa Beach was, I did a monthly thing there. I was starting to do a monthly thing at the Ice House. Like that's what was good for me.
Yeah, like one night.
Yeah, I do one night, and I sell it out or come close to selling out. It was which, when you're doing those things in LA, helps you for the road. Like, hey, the guy doesn't even need to leave home, and he can make that much money. Why would he come to your club? So, which was good. And then I was doing Vegas every 2 weeks. I had a residency there. So, I don't know, I just.
What you do is perfect for that.
Yeah.
What you do on stage is perfect for that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Vegas is the prime crowd work spot.
Yeah.
And you being such a heavily crowd work guy, that's perfect. Yeah. So you were going every 2 weeks. I thought residency basically meant you fucking moved there and lived in the hotel you were performing in for a year.
A residency meant I was there this night for a year. That's what it meant. So some guys do the residencies like for over 6 weeks. Some guys do it for a year. Some guys spread it out, and
it's just your contract.
It was just my contract. So I just knew that it was supposed to be. I think I only got 3 or 4 months into it, but it was a year. I was supposed to be the first Thursday, and the third Thursday of every month for a year, and I was on people knew it. So
and that's probably that one night every 2 weeks. I mean, obviously you probably negotiated whatever the deal you negotiated, but I would imagine that just that one night every 2 weeks probably took care of your rent.
Yeah. We were doing very well. We had, that number. The number I was making was definitely at some point during my career was a monthly wage that I was working every week and making that, So, and to be honest with you, I've accepted gigs for 2021 in some clubs that are hoping to be open, but not fully. And I was getting paid more for that one night than I will be for a weekend.
That doesn't surprise me even a little bit.
Yeah, it's I would
Especially now.
I would say for the next year, it's just just holding on. That's what we need to do.
That's what I've been telling everybody because, like, I'm in a situation, um, like when this all started, my wife left me basically 2 weeks into the pandemic, and
Nice,
yeah, now I've got the house, which
nice.
I got that, but I have to refinance it. I have like 9 months to refinance it. So what I have to do is is I started a day job today. So I have to work like a regular guy job for at least as long as it takes to get the house refinanced because of the pandemic and everything else, I can't show enough income comedy wise to be able to do that.
Of course, yeah, and also and it's so weird. What a weird time. Just sorry you have to go through all that, and at
Yeah,
least
well, and then a
at
year,
least the rates are down.
right, right. Well, and the thing is, it like you said, it'll be a year before even the most successful comics, outside of super famous people,
They're not making
uh,
money.
yeah, like they're not going to be able to do anything for like a year.
No.
So for a guy like me who just is a jobber, who's like, I'm like the guy. I always compare it to wrestling. Like I'm the guy that's already in the ring
Hmm.
for Hulk Hogan to come and beat up or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, that's funny.
So like, so for guys like me, it's going to be at least a year before we can make
Yeah,
a meager living.
yeah.
So I have no choice but to get like back into the workforce and
I think they should be paying you anybody that's featuring. Like if you're going out featuring, you should be getting the exact same number you were getting before. Um, you know, it's just
you
they,
do, except it's per show.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
now they're only doing 4 shows instead of
It's
6.
it's just it's such to answer the fella's question that came up before. I enjoy. Do you prefer a regular stand-up crowd or a Vegas show? I think they're exactly the same. The only difference is there's going to be tourists in a Vegas crowd, but I start to find that with what I was doing, I was getting a lot of locals. Locals were coming out to see me, people that. So I felt like it was basically the same, and just my style is just getting to know the crowd, so it doesn't matter. So either way,
Well,
better yet, what do you prefer? A crowd that came just to see you, or a crowd that has no idea you are? Ooh, that's interesting.
I gotta go. I gotta go just to see me on that one.
I just to see you. See, I haven't gone.
Only over time, because what I mean by that really is just having your own audience
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
in
I
general.
get that. But I don't know what it is, but I just always assume that they don't know who I am, and I'm always shocked that they're there to see me. So I've had some times like, oh, you've seen the show before, or
I I, I
I've
can't
recognized
wait.
somebody. So
I can't wait for you to get to the point where you have to say that just to appear humble.
just appear humble, which won't happen. Uh, I remember I won't say it, this guy was a very big TV star, but he was on cable, so not a lot of people knew who he was. But the people that knew who he was famous,
Hmm.
and he would do shows, and he was just starting out in stand up, and he would annihilate these crowds that he knew who he was. And then one night at the Improv, he went on and nobody knew who he was, and they just stared at him. They're just like, it's like, who is this douche? So I think when you hear the stories. This guy walked up to me and he introduced me to him, and my mouth was on the floor, and he said, "Hello, I'm Eddie Van Halen." I think you've always got to be that guy that introduces yourself and expects people to not know you.
I agree with that 100%.
Hmm.
Uh, but on on some level, even the Eddie Van Halen in the back of his mind was fucking shocked that guy didn't know who he was.
Oh, he was. It's just like I'm sure he was just like, well, let's see how this fucking douche fucking responds.
That's 100% what it is. Because
You're wearing my pants that I sell in
well,
Target.
and
You know what?
he also knows if you're Eddie Van Halen, you also know that you're not David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar.
Right.
So even though it's your fucking band, only
Right.
the hardcore Van Halen fans
Uh,
recognize you walking down the street.
I think that funny smile, that people recognize that funny smile, that he was pretty big. I remember
Yeah.
I had a roommate, and he had been in a car accident, and he was going to a doctor, and he said this guy was standing in front of him, and he was going up to the doctor, and they're both waiting to get on the elevator, and he goes, "Oh my God, it's David Lee Roth." He could tell it was David Lee Roth just looking at the back of him, and he goes, "David," and the guy, he said he took like 3 seconds and turned around and said, "Yeah." He just had to click into David Lee Roth mode, and then booyah.
See, and that right there, that's what makes you great to me as a comic is there is a distinct Ian Bagg tone.
It's
Like
when I get
you,
excited. Yeah, when I get excited, it definitely comes out.
well, but it's not even that. Like I don't even think because it's organic, you don't even know. I don't even
Yeah,
think
it's
you
not made
really
up.
even know it. Kind of. It's uh like for example tonight when I hadn't heard from you and we're getting right up to the point where we're gonna go on, right? And I'm like, and so I send Jaredog a text and I go, I haven't heard from Ian yet, but I wouldn't put it past him to just log on right at 11 and then say, "Hey, Bill Blank, I just wanted to see you,
Oh,
sir."
I felt
I was
so
like,
bad.
just
I felt so bad. I was like, was that this? Because we have some friends coming over next Monday, and I thought they were coming over today. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, oh fuck, I flip flop with Bill. It's this, and which is stupid because you're going to be on my show on
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So
Yeah.
it's stupid, but I just had a lot of shit going on in my mind. Was just I don't know about you, but I've had a couple times where I'm just like, hey, it's Friday, and nope, it's Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, I think as comics, just in general, we kind of sometimes forget what day of the week it is
Yeah,
because our life is like summer vacation when you
yeah.
were going to school.
The big thing that I've learned during this is I'm not gonna turn and burn as hard as I was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take and smell the flowers every once in a while. I was just like, oh man, I have done a lot, and I could have probably spread it out a little bit more. So
Well, because I was talking about this with my last Vince Morris, who was my last guest. We've got this like societal thing kind of in America, which I think capitalism is what contributes to it. Is we like feel guilty if we're not productive 24/7.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
It's
but
like why do you have to and with comics in general, I mean most of us, anyone that's been around for a long time, you've gone through so many ebbs and flows in your career
mhm.
that you understand that, man, I'm doing really well right now. I got some momentum. I'm making a lot of money. I'm working a lot, and you feel like you have to maintain the shit out of that because it can all go away at any given moment
But I also
where all of a
feel
sudden you're not working as much,
I also feel during this I've learned that, okay, you got to you got the other side of the I've been ignoring the social media. I've been ignoring the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. I've been ignoring that, and I got to put the effort into that. It's got to have the ebb and not the ebb and flow, I don't know, whatever you call it, but this is going to help this out,
Synergy.
synergy. And I feel like this hand hasn't been moving, so
Yeah.
yeah. And the guys that really get it going, they got both of them going at the same time. And yeah, you got to pay attention.
Well, and you're
It's such a honestly, Bill, like, anybody that makes money is working hard. There's very few guys in our business that are just lucky. Like
mhm.
there's a couple of them, but for the most part, you got to give respect and tip the hat to anybody that makes money in this business. And I'm not talking like huge money. I'm talking anybody that can
just buying your fucking groceries.
Yeah, it's
like, to me, that's a success in stand up. Like,
it's success, and if you're not swimming, if you're just floating, you're going backwards in this business. So you always got to be paddling. So I think it gives me a little bit more. This whole thing is probably going to give me a little more respect for everybody that's in the business.
Well, and I think you do have a really good leg up that, like I said, about just having that distinct tone and just knowing. It's like, how there's bands where the very first note they play, what band that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the Black Crowes are a band like that. Like, right away, I know that's the Black Crowes, or like the Allman Brothers. I know that's the Allman Brothers from the first fucking lick, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the moment a single sound comes out of your mouth, I know that's Ian Bagg.
And
I don't know if you know that about yourself.
No, yeah, I don't. It's funny. I definitely, where I grew up, we had a sing song kind of accent, and my mom's Australian, my dad's Canadian, and I live in America. So I feel like I've kind of everything's influenced me, and I kind of have my own feel. But if you get me around the guys that I'm from, you would not know the difference. We all sound really quite alike, which is funny because when I go back and see them, they tell me how American I sound now.
Yeah.
So, what was that with? I don't know if you guys realize I'm the only fan. Don't leave, Matt. Just don't. That's, by the way,
I don't know how the fuck he's even on here, because we don't have it listed, and I didn't share it because I wasn't sure when you were coming. So it's on
YouTube. So he would.
It is, but it's unlisted. Like, you would have had to have clicked on a link. So I don't know how he even fucking got on here.
He would have got a notice as we started. So I'm glad he is on here, and I've never paid attention to my YouTube, and during this quarantine, I'm paying attention to my YouTube. And anybody that's successful has a very good YouTube following. So put in your YouTube work, Billy.
That's one of my plans. I actually, now that I think about it, now that I saw that, I feel like maybe this might be, Jaredog might have this streaming on his Facebook page right now. We were having trouble with our podcast earlier because as we were simultaneously doing YouTube and Facebook or whatever, it was glitching a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of just went straight to YouTube.
I love the StreamYard. The YouTube, that's a YouTube link there, so it's good. Yeah, I like it.
Right on. Yeah, but well, I don't know. Maybe we should let's get into your stories. Let's get into your first time stories. I searched Ian and what Newser.
Newser and Newser. I don't know. He's trying to.
Yeah, that's lucky for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for Bill's. If I don't know where you are, Matt, but if you're in the Midwest, Bill's out of Iowa. He's very funny, well worth seeing. He's got a different outlook. The club that he works, his home club, is a fantastic club, and I'm so glad it's still around. A friend of both of ours, owned it and passed away, and his wife, his widow, has done, struggled to keep that his dream alive, and has done a very good job with it. She's doing it. Owning a comedy club is so tough. You got an hour a day to make money. So, and
you spend 10 of those working to make that hour make you money.
Yeah, exactly. So, but she's kept Paul's dream alive, and he loved that club. And the fact that she loved him that much to keep his dream alive is just we should all have somebody like that.
Man, something. I mean, you know what Paul meant to me, and the 10th anniversary was just this past
That's
September.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, and we, if you remember, yeah, I know. And if you remember, he was riding his bike. He was at Gray's Lake, which is kind of a place where people do that kind of shit. They walk and they ride bikes and all that. And he sat down on a bench and just kind of keeled over right there. So Leisha, it was weird. Leisha sent me a text message. Leisha was, I guess did we say her name? Leisha is the widow. She sent me a text saying, "Hey, we're gonna go to Gray's Lake at 10 a.m. I think it happened at 10 a.m. And she was like, "We're gonna go to Gray's Lake at 10 a.m. tomorrow." Already reached out to a couple of other comics, asked me if I knew anybody else that she was forgetting. She was like, "Oh, we just want to hang out and have some laughs. Nothing, serious or anything." And I thought she just missed us. Like,
You didn't know.
I didn't even put it together. And I thought like she just wanted to see us because none of us have done shit since March,
Right.
And I pulled into the parking lot, and that's when I realized why we were there all of a sudden.
You're
Also,
like,
I probably would have put it together. I've been going through so much of my own bullshit that I was kind of living in that place. So like I was just, but as soon as I pulled in, I realized why we were there, and all of a sudden it felt a little bit heavy. But then we sat there and we started talking about Paul and all his little fucking eccentricities, and I mean how he would you'd be talking to him and you just felt like he wasn't listening to you at all.
he wasn't.
Yeah, but then you'd ask him a question and he'd just fucking sit there,
Right.
And then a couple minutes would go by and he'd answer it.
It's because it took him that long to get it back in his brain. I think he said he's from Utah, Matt. I think Matt said, "I'm in Utah, and we'll definitely check out Bill. I wish you both the best, and that you're touring heavily." So thanks, man.
That's awesome.
That is, we.
That's a dude that was specifically looking for you just now.
Yeah.
See,
yeah.
This is what I'm saying. You don't even know.
No, it's great that dude, it's so from since I started out to now, the way comedy has changed for building an audience is just incredible. And
it's easier and harder at the same time.
It's easier and harder.
Because it's harder because it's gotten more saturated. Because anybody can put the shit out there, but at the same time, the cream still rises to the top eventually.
It does, and it takes you a couple. It takes a guy that a guy or girl turning around and helping you up a little bit. I do think comedy gets the same respect it has always gotten, which is none. I think people think comedy's art's stupid little brother. They don't really consider us art, but I hate to tell you, I think comedy has gotten me through some very dark times, being able to laugh at stuff and just escape. It's not like music, which keeps you in that dark spot.
Yeah. You know what? That's actually a really good analogy right there, because I always compare music and comedy when I talk about it, and why music touches me more than comedy does.
Right.
Is because really, really good music will give you goosebumps. Like a good joke doesn't do that. It doesn't physically affect you that way.
Music can put me exactly where I heard that song the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy later on in life can make me go, why was I there? Because sometimes you're like, well, that movie was nowhere near as funny as I remember it.
So, right. Oh yeah, totally. But how many times? But how many movies have you watched that are funnier?
Or how many movies from the 80s are you like, holy shit, this whole movie's about rape?
or like, or you're going, no wonder I only saw this on HBO.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do you
Exactly.
remember HBO? Like, early HBO had so much shit on it
Yeah. Well, that's
that
all.
never was in a theater. It was probably in a theater in LA and around California or something, but it was
No.
never in theaters nationwide.
I would say HBO at the beginning was basically YouTube, the movies you see on YouTube,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, or
what they
Netflix or
yeah.
anything right in the beginning.
So
Like, what about what was the fucking? Oh, did you ever see the movie
thanks, man.
that was like a straight to fucking HBO thing? It was called Just One of the Guys,
No.
and it was this chick. This chick was writing for her school newspaper, and
She
she
became a guy.
didn't she didn't get like the thing that she was trying to get for the next year or whatever, and
Uh-huh.
she thought it was because she was a girl,
Uh-huh.
and so she transferred to the public school and pretended to be a dude.
Oh, is this with the girl that went crazy?
And then she, like at the end, she showed her tits to prove to the dude that she was a chick.
Awesome.
Like she became best friends with this guy, as her guy self,
But what's
but then
funny?
like fell in love with him.
What's funny about it is nowadays you could whip out your tits and still have a cock on the bottom. Not nowadays, just like that movie doesn't hold up to time, right? So,
that
I
remind
do you
that
remember the movie?
reminds me of the time I did the Aristocrats.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they made that movie about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So when they made that movie about it, they did like this contest where they wanted you to send in your version of it, and if you won, they'd put you on the extras on the DVD or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to do it at the end of an open mic at the old Funny Bone
Mm-hmm.
with the blue wall. You remember that one,
I
right?
didn't ever do that one.
Oh, you didn't do that one.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that was before. That's a long. So you know how long ago we're talking. Well, you knew when that movie was happening anyway. So
Right.
anyway, um, well, when that was coming out, all of a sudden, every open micer, all these people that were trying to act like they were legit, they were having like aristocrats nights, and every comic's doing the aristocrats. Well, that's not what that was meant for.
Right.
The aristocrats was meant to be done in front of an unsuspecting audience.
Right. Right.
It,
Yeah.
it, it was like a rite of passage. It was you. It was the vaudeville version of a comic going up to bomb on purpose.
Right.
It was like an angel getting their wings. That's what it was. So I wanted to make a version of it to send to the thing, but I wanted it to be to an unsuspecting audience. I knew that everyone else was sending Aristocrats Nights fucking clips and shit, right? So Paul fucking brought his camera. Paul filmed it, and I went on at the end of the open mic that had like 20 comics. Well, they had this fucking one of the doormen had a friend. One of the doormen was gay and like in the whole scene, like gay community and everything. And he said that he knew someone that could host the open mic night, that hosted this drag shows and shit. So he brings a what's the right term now? Tranny? You can't say tranny.
Trannies. A tranny's in your car. A transgendered person is the one that fixes it.
Yeah. So, so the trans. So he has this trans person do and they were horrible.
Right.
And they were really shitty. Like they were making fun of the comics.
Right.
So she goes up, and Paul goes to the doorman and says, "Go tell her not to fuck around and just bring him right up. Like, tell her not to say shit, just bring him up." So he goes and says that, and she goes up and goes, "Well, this next guy, he's gonna blow you away. I mean, you're gonna love him. His name's Bill Blank, like Mel Blank, like suffering succotash," and started doing like Looney Tunes voices.
Nice.
and then brings me up Bill Blank or whatever. So I get up and I go, suffer and succotash. I think I just saw an Adam's apple.
That's awesome.
And the crowd like starts like it killed obviously, and you could see them because they just saw 20 really shitty. I mean,
Right.
not all 20 of them are shitty, but most of them are
19 and a half.
Yeah, so they've been sitting through the whole thing, and they're like, oh, this dude's funny, so we can relax.
Right.
And then I launch into the aristocrats.
And boom.
And it was, and I think the biggest reason I got no response when I sent it is because the whole video, Paul's right next to the camera.
Laughing up a storm. That's great. Take my joke, please. My wife and I have 9 kids, 1 each, and we got the LG, and we got them all. That's hysterical. We got another person in here. That's crazy.
But that's only 4.
That's only 4. You know what's funny is I fly to the Long Beach airport, which is LBG. I call it the LBGTQ airport. You know, the runway.
Yeah,
the runways for everyone.
Do you still watch anybody?
No.
Yeah, I don't much either. I mean,
if somebody asks me to, I will, but I just don't. You know what my big thing is? I don't want to know what's going on before I go on. And
well, see, I will watch.
It's a clean sheet ice, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's like I watch. If I happen to be headlining a show, I will watch who's in front of me just to see if they step on anything or anything like that, or maybe they get into the crowd and say something about somebody, and hopefully so that I won't repeat it or something like. And I won't ever tell a guy, "Hey, don't do that joke tomorrow" or anything like that. I just watch so that I can adjust because I should be able to, or I shouldn't be in that position. But anyway, so like I will stand there and watch that, but like I don't watch specials. I don't like once I got up on stage for the first time, it was like the fan kind of went away, which I think sucks. I envy the comics that are still fans, you know?
Yeah, comedy does not stay the same. It changes once you become a comedian. But every so often, like I watched LeVar. I can't. What's his name? Who's the big guy? He was in Breaking Bad. LeVar. Is it LeVar?
Lavelle Crawford.
Lavelle Crawford. I watched him. I just happened to stumble across one of his specials, and I just giggled like a girl. You know, it was so much fun. So.
Well, and he's a fun dude, and he's very self-aware.
Yeah,
and he's got a great just his persona and his cadence, and but like I'll watch. I usually watch if Chappelle comes out with a special. I usually watch it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because. Sometimes he makes me want to quit.
Yeah, but you shouldn't. You know,
you can't compare. You don't compare yourself ever. I mean, I get that, but
it's so much like figure skating in a way where the people that judge it usually can't do it. You know, it doesn't make sense. Like the judging of it. You know, it's
I feel that like they do these contests all the time, the Clash of the Comics at the clubs.
Well, it's the best.
And they'll ask you to come and judge it. And I always tell them like I don't want to judge. I think art is subjective, especially comedy is subjective, and I don't feel like it should be judged, and I don't feel like it should ever be a contest. So when I judge it, I give every single comic the same score. I circle every category is like 1 through 5, and I give everyone all 3s.
I've done some stuff where they've asked me to. I've been in some towns, and suddenly I'm running a comedy workshop, and I'm just like, just do your own thing. because there's no wrong way of doing comedy and there's no right way of doing comedy. Just have fun, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and don't steal from other people, and be polite to the staff. You know, those are the things I try to teach.
Drink the cheap booze, at
Yeah,
least at first,
don't drink.
or don't drink at all.
I tell people a lot of times, don't drink there. Don't drink when you're working. Just don't. Like when they, you know, like what advice you have? Don't drink. Don't drink there. Don't, just drink someplace else, because you don't. People remember things. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want the staff to be excited when you walk through the door. Oh, he's going to be fun. We're going to have fun with him.
Mm-hmm.
Not, oh, he got like too drunk last time and threw up on the floor and we had to clean it up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that right there is your kind of slippery slope, because it's like,
well,
a lot of times if you party with the staff, you're coming back.
Yeah.
So like,
it's
you party with the staff, but not too much.
Yeah, you just have a drink with. It's such a weird business, because it's just like, where else do you get? Well, do you need a drink before your work?
Yeah.
So
100%.
So
we should get into your stories. Let's
sorry. Yeah, I'll tell my story.
What are your first time stories? Where
I'm gonna actually just tell one. I'm just gonna tell one first time story, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna tell you about my first time I went to New York City. And this is very Ian Bagg-esque, as in I'm moving to New York City. Like that's how it happened.
This after Just for Laughs?
This is Just for Laughs. I went to Just for Laughs, but was not booked.
Oh.
I went along to watch my friend Craig Campbell. I had worked Montreal. I didn't get Montreal. I was there. And got on stage because we hung out at one of the clubs, and I hung out with my friend when he did all his Just for Laughs shows, but also I hung out at the club, the Comedy Works, because I knew somebody might not show up and they might need somebody to step in, and Jimbo liked me enough that I knew he'd put me on, and he did. And this club owner from New York seen me, and he said, if you come to New York, I will put you on stage.
Oh, wow. I thought that was a Just for Laughs thing. So that was just...
No, that was me. That was me. So,
and that was Lucian, right?
That was Lucian. And
was he there for Just for Laughs?
He was there for Just for Laughs. It was during Just for Laughs, but I wasn't booked on Just for Laughs.
Right. Okay.
So, but he was at this club, and Colleen McGar was there, and she had seen me and told Lucian, watch this guy.
Who's she?
She used to, she was one of the owners of that club in Texas, in Austin, that just closed. She was one of those owners.
The Velveeta?
No, the other one.
Oh, what's that fucking thing called?
Yeah. So she was,
anyway,
and she was originally from Montreal, and I think she represented it in Bill Hicks. She had something to do with Bill.
Oh, okay.
So he watched me and said to me, if you come to New York, I'll put you on stage. I took that as, you should move to New York. So I had worked my way across Canada and was making $30 here, $30 there, and got myself to Montreal. But now I'm in Montreal and I'm dating this girl, and I get on the stage, and all this happens. And the next day I'm talking to her via payphone and putting coins in the payphone. And she said, and I'm living with her, and she says, you have to come home immediately. And I was like, oh, okay. So I hitchhiked across Canada back to Vancouver. And when I got there, within 5 minutes of walking through the door, she broke up with me.
That's why she told you to come home?
Yeah,
on your way to fucking New York?
Well, I wasn't going to New York then, but
okay.
But I was just, I knew I was going to have to go to New York at some point, right? Mm-hmm. So I was just like, well, I'm pretty sure you could have told me this on the phone. I didn't need to hitchhike home, Yeah. So I kick around Vancouver for 3 more months, and I get another gig in Montreal and I'm getting paid $800 for the week. I'm headlining there. I'm working for the full week. I'm getting paid $800 Canadian. I take that $800 and I turn it into I buy myself a train ticket and I turn it into probably about $500 American. And I get on a train and I head off to New York. I've never been to New York before. And
Oh, you're so misguided.
well, I've always said this about my career: just enough innocence with just enough drive.
Yeah, yeah, and
You
and
know,
and even just enough at that moment, enough delusion.
yeah, just like yeah, well, yeah, delusion.
Yeah.
Because so I get on the train and you have to go through the border first thing, and they're like, "What are you going?" And I'm like, "I'm a writer, and I'm gonna go write about New York." And they're like, "Okay," so they look through my comedy books and can't read my writing. I'm like, okay, so no problem. So now I get on the train and we got another 6 hours to go to New York, and I take the night train and I arrive in the morning. So I wake up and we're coming into New York City, and just all the tunnels are spray painted, just everything's spray painted. And I'm coming from Canada, and
Where everything's clean.
yeah, where like every so often there's a spray paint, and it's grad 92. It's not fucking it's not Ghostface Killer. So
Latin
so
Kings.
yeah. So and I'm just like, what have I done? That's all I can think. And just tell you this, I don't have a place to stay.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say.
Yeah, I have no place to stay. I
And you
am
don't know anybody.
nobody. I know Lucian Hold's going to put me on stage. That's what I know. Lucian Hold's going to put me on stage. I'm just like, I will find a place to stay. That's what I'm like. So the train pulls into Penn Station, and I get off the train, and as I get off the train, on the ground there is there's the piece of paper, but they have all the phone numbers on them.
Oh yeah, the room for rent or whatever. Yeah.
So you pull it. There's a youth hostel, $14 a night or something, or it may have been $12 a night at that point. I don't know what it was. It was ridiculously cheap. And I'm like, oh, this is where I'm staying. So
I can stay here for like fucking 6 months.
Yeah, like this is where I'm staying. I'm gonna go. So I take the piece of paper, but I call up. Are you guys? Yeah. But you can't come here until 11 o'clock, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? So, I'm like wandering around Penn Station, and I sit down, and immediately I get taken. Hey, do you have change for? Do you have? I don't know how. Do you have change? Do you have $1? If I give you the change. And I was like, yeah. So I gave him $1 and he gave me a quarter. And I was just like fucking furious. I remember being furious. I was like, what the fuck? This is not happening again. I am never going to be suckered ever again. Like
75 fucking shit.
Yeah. Just like, this is son of a bitch. Like, in my head, like, that's 4 phone calls. Now I've got 1 phone call. Because I'm using payphone at this time. This is like payphone. So I go to this youth hostel, and they're like, yeah, you can stay here. And it's just all these different, like different nationalities all over the place. And I pick a room, and and there's like 10 of us in this room, and I have it's so innocent, at that time. It was just bunk beds all over the place, and I took a bottom bunk, and I had my stuff underneath. You had to be out from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. every day. You had to be gone. You had to be gone. So I would go, so I'm like, I got to call Lucian, got to get myself set up. So I'm not used to this where you call in for spots, you leave your avails, and then they call you back. So I'm calling this number and I'm hanging up because I've only got a certain amount of quarters, right?
Yeah.
So fine, and I keep hanging. Finally, he picks up and goes, "Are you the person that keeps hanging up?" And I go, well, yeah, it's Ian Bagg calling, and I've only got quarters for, and I just want to, He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, come down tonight, and I'll put you on." I'm like,
I only know this because of you and Johnny Bush.
Oh.
but you have to give me his answer in the Lucian voice.
So, are you the one? Are you the one that keeps hanging up on me? He's got a little bit of Lorne Michaels to him. He's like,
oh my God,
yes,
when you did, I'm sure you remember when you did Bush and I's podcast when we were doing one for a while, and you and Bush doing fucking dueling Lucians.
Bush does it so
one of my favorite things ever.
Him and Dunnigan do very good Lucians there, you know.
Oh God.
So I started a sketch group because Lucian ended up, I'm going to cut. Oh, Lucian became my manager, and
how did that night go?
Oh, so that I bombed. So my first night, as I go down there, and I just bomb. I'm talking about I'm from Canada and I'm a Sasquatch and blah 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 blah. And people are just like, what the fuck's he talking about? And then Lucian's like, you've got something, you just keep it, and you're gonna go. I probably took me about another 10 tanks, but he put me on every night, gave me $25. They gave me $25 cash every night. I would take in and pay my $12 or $14, whatever it was, and then I had an extra $10. I remember going to a donut shop. I'd never been to a donut shop in my life. I was just like, these are fucking fantastic. I was so green just as a person, because we may have had, we had bakeries inside grocery stores. We didn't have donut shops. So, you know what I mean? So I was just,
there was just you had nothing that was just strictly donuts.
Like I was a donut. It was just like all these donuts. I remember I would have a whole wheat donut. I'm like, I'm going for a whole wheat donut. This is insane. So I would just, I had $11 to spend, and anyways, I started becoming friends with everybody at the youth hostel, and I would show up with these entourages of, one night I'd have 8 Germans with me. Next night I'd have 4 Germans, an Irish guy, and a Japanese guy. And people at the club were just like, who the fuck is this weirdo that just keeps showing up? So I lived there for a month and a half, and go every night and do these shows and all over the place. And Lucian does the thing. He said, would you like me to manage you? No, he didn't say at that point. He said one night, he just said, look, tonight the people from Conan O'Brien are coming in. There's going to be an audition. You're not on it. I was like, oh, thanks. That's great. Mm-hmm. He goes, but what I need you to do is go on just before it, and they'll see you. If they arrive on time, they'll see you. If they don't arrive on time, you'll be buffering until they show up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. They arrived on time. I went on just before it, and they seen me, and I was the only one that got the Conan O'Brien off that. They came up and talked to me afterwards, and I said, I would love to do it, but I'm a completely illegal. And they helped me get my work papers. And,
oh wow.
Yeah, it was great. They got my work papers for me, but yeah, it's insane.
Nobody thinks about anyone being illegal coming from Canada.
No, everybody just think, oh,
he's white.
Yeah,
it's okay.
He's not gonna hurt anybody. I'm like, there's way more violence up there than in Mexico. So it was just that was my first trip to New York, and I just remember and it's funny that you're what you're going through, because I remember this girl had broken up with me, and I was brokenhearted, and I remember just being in this city where it was just stocked full of beautiful women.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember and they'd all talk to you and stuff like that. I was so confused because I grew up in Canada where, the men outnumber the women by, at least 3 to 1. So they had a completely different attitude.
Oh yeah. New York is a way different ratio.
Yeah.
They've got to, that like New York's the first place I've ever been where chicks got their makeup tattooed on and shit like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's so, and I would just, I remember meeting all these people, and they're just so different. And then comedy, just I was the right move because I just, I was going through, and then I'd be walking down the street, and the Empire State Building would be right there. And then some guy asked me to play hockey. I didn't have my hockey equipment. They found me hockey equipment to play. I went and played. They loved me, and we all ended up hanging out. We became friends, and it's just one of these things. It was my first time in New York, and it was just like, oh, I'm supposed to be in show business.
yeah,
That's
it was the universe giving
Yeah,
you a gift,
yeah.
and you didn't know it in the moment, but
Didn't know it, and
that's what happened.
it just I've never done things easy. I've always done them really weirdly. And that was
Hmm.
another one of those things that I just did weirdly, but it was so much fun and just a great time. And then one day I came into Lucian's office and I said, after going out to LA so many times, I'm like, hey, am I allowed to live in Los Angeles? I remember asking him that. He's like, he's like, He's like, what do you mean? Are you allowed to live in Los Angeles? I was like, I'm out there a lot, and I notice the weather never changes, and it's really fucking great. I want to live out there. And he's like, well, you go out there. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go out there. So that's how I ended up in Los Angeles. I I wish I'd stayed. Sometimes I wish I'd stayed in New York, but I'm glad I moved out here. I met my wife out here, and I just feel like I'm a West Coast kid, even though we own a house in Virginia as well. Just
Is that and that's where we watch Ian Bagg bought a house.
Yeah, I used to do a podcast in Bagg bought a house, and I would do. It's funny. I I was talking to this contractor, and all this is the last story I'll tell you about. I was talking to this contractor, and he was giving me advice. He'd come to a show, and he's like, "I'm a contractor. I love you what you do. I'm a contractor. I'm a contractor." I said, "Oh, I just bought a house," and he's like, "If you ever need any advice, yeah, I'll give you advice." So I was like, "Oh," I got his number, and we talked, and he seemed like a really nice guy, and he was giving me advice one day, and I just said, "Hey, do you want to do this as a podcast?" He said, "What do you mean?" I go, "We just talk about it," and he goes, "That sounds fun." And then I started, and then he started doing it with me, and I was like, "Oh, this guy knew exactly what a podcast was."
Yeah.
And then we ended up filming a sizzle reel for it, and he thought he was getting his own TV show. He
He's
went
all
off,
excited.
he went off the rails like you wouldn't believe, and I was just like, "Oh no, I thought you were a nice guy." This guy thinks show business happens after like 10 podcasts. Oh no.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, that was a lesson I learned very early that I was fortunate to learn because in like 2004, I did a reality show with William Shatner, and
Uh,
when it was on Spike TV and like when it was getting ready to come out, I'm sitting here thinking like I'm gonna be famous like tomorrow.
right,
I'm never gonna have to try to work again. I'm gonna be able to call every club in the country and they're gonna be like, yeah,
right,
come here. And the week that it aired, I was working at Direct TV setting appointments for installations and shit. I got like $300 from doing it. Like that was it. I got like SAG pay and I wasn't in the union, so it didn't matter.
yeah.
And that's all it was. And so
It's
like I learned that very early because when you're young, like you were, that's the delusion that made you go ahead and go to New York. And
mhm.
you know,
Well,
it snowballed in the right way, but like you were young enough to think like if I just go to New York, the next great thing's gonna happen.
it
And
wasn't it wasn't that, Bill. It wasn't. I was in Canada. You know what I mean? I was told, the first time I did an open mic, a guy named Pat Bullard came up to me and said, "Ian, you are so funny." But or it wasn't the first time I did it. It was come up to me and he said,
yeah.
"Ian, you're so funny, but you have to promise me something. You will do everything in your power to leave Canada." And I was like, "Okay, why is that?" He goes, "You will die here and you will never grow here. You have to leave Canada." And I was like, "Okay." So
Mm.
my whole effort was to get out of Canada. Like he scared me so bad that I wasn't in show business if I stayed in Canada. And to be honest with you, there's very little room for the stars. Like the star system is very non-existent in Canada. Here, I don't consider myself a star. I was tell my wife the other day, I said, on, A, B, or C level, I'm pretty sure I'm an X, so, so it's, I would not have continued on in stand up had I stayed in Canada. And
Sure.
then it was,
At some point, it wouldn't have been enough.
yeah, it wouldn't have been enough. And it was almost like that, 8 Mile, it was my shot. I had to take my shot and find out if I worked, if it worked. And but I didn't, I just had enough naivete that, I did it, and what helped was growing up in the middle of nowhere. I had to go to the city to do stuff. So
You
I
already had to go somewhere in the
yeah.
first place.
So I wasn't locked to Vancouver.
Mhm.
I wasn't leaving home for the first time leaving
Mhm.
Vancouver. I wasn't.
You'd already had to adapt a bit
So
somewhere.
yeah.
Okay, so real quick before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I have two questions that, well, one question and one observation about your story. Number one, um, how amazing and how you don't want to use the word luck too heavily, but like how amazing and how I guess blessed were you that when you got to New York, you went on stage and Lucian put you up, and he had the foresight to be able to watch you eat it, but still know you had something. There was
It,
something there, and
it
he
was.
wanted you to keep going.
He knew. Lucian and I had a really weird relationship. He used to call me his son.
Yeah.
And that was something he didn't do with Tom Papa or John Bush. Like he used to say, Ian, you're the closest thing I'll ever have to a son. He used to say that to me. And he used to have me, when he'd go in on vacation, I would stay at his place and take care of his place. And and I remember saying to him one day, if you consider me your son, why do you hide the silverware? And so he, I don't know, he really, I owe a lot to him. And it was just I didn't have the to know that I sucked.
Yeah.
You know?
The self-awareness.
And also, Lucian was just a guy to me. He was to these. I'd watch these guys sit around and talk to him. All these guys that are on TV today, like I go through all the list, and they would talk to Lucian. I remember Lucian had this horrible disease where he was turning to stone.
Yeah.
He couldn't. He would cough while he was eating, and food would fly out of his mouth, and it would land on guys' faces and stuff like that. And they wouldn't even flinch. They just like, oh, I don't know, do I move it or do I
Well,
just
it's
like,
fucking
yeah,
Lucian. What do I do?
yeah, exactly. Because he was the gatekeeper. He had made so many stars.
And because you didn't come up there, he was just a guy.
Yeah. So, and he used to drive me nuts, and I used to make him laugh, and I'm sure I used to drive him nuts, and I just, there's show business it's show business. That's the only thing I wish. I wish I had a little bit more kind of schooling behind me for the business, and I think I'd be further ahead. But yeah, you're right in that story about that.
Okay, so the other thing, you hitchhiked?
Yeah.
Is that like something that's easily done in Canada? Because
I got one ride right across Canada from Toronto, all the way to just outside of Vancouver.
and then,
These guys,
so how'd
there's
you get
two
to
guys.
Montreal?
I got a ride back with other people that lived in Toronto, back to Toronto.
Or yeah, Toronto. Yeah. So
Toronto was towards
Vancouver.
mhm.
So how did you? Didn't you say that you hitchhiked to Montreal though in the
No,
first
no, no,
place?
no, no, no. I didn't. Remember, I got shows across. I
Oh,
was.
okay, yeah, you got shows.
So
So you like bust?
I flew. I think I flew to Winnipeg or Toronto, and then was going from there, like the next, and getting rides with guys for the gigs and continuing my way on and stuff like that.
Right on. So the ride that you got was just obviously that's a just non-needle mover, the hitchhike ride.
What do you mean?
Well, like, there's usually a story, something about the people that you rode with. I mean, anything. I mean,
Two guys that they had a truck. I would sleep in the back of the truck. They would let me drive every so often. Uh,
how
it
long
was
was it? How long of a drive is it?
4 days. I think it was 3 or 4 days.
Holy shit, it's that far?
Yeah, it's basically let's say what Buffalo to Seattle.
Oh my god, yeah, that's a long fucking way.
So yeah,
So you
and
got lucky they were going that far.
they were going to Vancouver.
Wow.
They were going to Vancouver, and
For what?
they were moving there.
Oh,
That's why
really?
they had to pick up.
Wow, that's amazing. So
There's a black dude and a white dude.
what time of year was it? What, like, was
Right
it
after
like
summer.
actual fucking bed? So you were literally in the back?
Dude, I stunk so bad when I get out of that. It was, like how, and this is like how I didn't pick up a horrible disease sleeping where two strangers slept, like we all just drove across Canada.
uh,
And how I didn't just get left. You know,
yeah,
how
I
did
mean,
that?
did you
How
talk
did
to
I?
him? I mean,
Yeah,
what?
we all became, we kind of became friends. I think they were
Wow.
musicians or something. I don't know what they were, but we just thought, we just kind of, I was very trusting, very trusting.
Well, and so if you were to apply the term luck to everything that happened for you, for the reasons you went to New York and how it all went down after that, you also have to apply it to the fact you didn't fucking get raped by these two dudes or like
Yeah,
some fucking.
hot the whole time.
And the whole time you're on your way home to get fucking dumped.
Just a waste of a ride. Just a waste of a ride.
Oh my god. Well, that's a fucking perfect place. And thank you so much for coming on with me, man.
Thanks, buddy.
The fact that I can call you my friend is a true victory for me in this business, and it's so nice.
Nice.
Um, so Wednesday,
Yes.
who are the other comics I'm on with?
Geez, I don't know. I have it written down someplace, but I don't know. Sorry.
I just have this, like, because you sent me the link, like, with the
Jason Law.
preview.
Jason Lawhead's one of them.
Okay, I don't know him.
He's out of Cleveland originally, now lives in San Diego. And yeah.
Because, like, you sent the thing, and I'm watching it, and I see, like, Billy Gardell and
Yeah.
Lori Kilmartin and all these people, like, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna get the shit kicked out of me.
I was trying to get Christina Pazinski for it, but she's unable to do it. So we'll see who we can get.
That's pretty cool that Segura fucking brought you up and stuff, man. I mean,
Yeah.
he's one of the few guys. I met him at the well, no, it was when the club first moved, and he was there as a feature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been friends with him ever since. And as time's gone on, and he's gotten bigger. He came here and I opened for him, and he doubled my money.
Mm-hmm.
Just I got my regular check, and then it was double out of his pocket. And just
a good person. They're both good people.
just an amazing dude, man. But again, man, thank you so much for coming on, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Absolutely.
And I love you so much. I hope we get to do this again soon.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you having me, and take care of yourselves, and don't keep your chin up. All right. You're just a good guy. You know what I mean? If you're just a good guy, not that way. That made it look like horrible the way you're doing, but don't put those two fingers under your chin.
Yeah. Keep your chin up. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's all good, man.
Buddy. Good. All right,
We're good. All right.
Love you. Stay safe out there.
Peace. Yep. Bye. You too. Peace.
Boop, 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 boop.